Imagine the year is 2003, and you're a 3 or barely 4-year-old child sitting in the living room getting ready to go to bed. Your mom approaches and says she has something to show you, taking you upstairs to an older sibling's room. There sat a well-used family Super Nintendo with a copy of Daffy Duck the Marvin missions inserted into the console. Little did I know that this game would affect our family dynamic over 20 years later. Yes, this is a game that we still discuss whenever our family gets together. As a matter of fact, my mom and I were just telling my fiance about how she actually picked up the game brand new at the time. It was a costly $49.99, which still to this day hasn't paid itself off. My fiance was appalled when I played this game on a CRT my friend Headpie gifted to me back around February. In this game, Daffy Duck traverses a variety of redundant hellscapes in an attempt to solve a vague and ambiguous plot. Daffy slips, slides, and glides under the guise of his Duck Dodgers moniker. And if there was anything in life I wished I ducked, it would be this game. Granted, it's much more playable with a mostly developed brain, but still. Daffy has this horrendous sliding momentum that easily bumps you into enemies or lava. His character sprite being pushed towards one end of the screen only creates more problems out of this situation. Redundant, labyrinth-esque level design is only saved by the sheer variety of weapons at your disposal, which is then neutered by the game's lack of impact upon hit. Shooting enemies in this game is the equivalent of punching 3 memory foam mattresses stacked on top of one another. Daffy Duck runs around screaming, "Mother?" the entire game like some kind of fucking freak. He does this to the point that now my fiance and I run around shouting, "Mother," knowing exactly what one another is alluding to. No, we're not talking about Zach Kreger's Barbarian. We're talking about Daffy Duck the Marvin missions. If the hit detection on enemies and the sliding doesn't drive you insane, the repetitive mini-bosses between each stage will. This is a game you'll enjoy if you're a fan of Contra and other platformer shooters, but also take my previous statement with a grain of salt. If Daffy Duck wasn't up to your taste, you also had Home Alone 2 Lost in New York on a Super Nintendo. Who doesn't love a game where the objective is to run from homicidal vacuum cleaners and middle-aged bastards in trench coats? Well, I certainly didn't at the time. The Home Alone games on Super Nintendo evoke an experience that can only be matched by watching the third movie. This title manages to also channel that Daffy Duck shit-tier shooter formula, with slightly better amenities. Kevin McAllister can slide on his knees, use weapons, and jump at a halfway decent height. Most importantly, his sprite does not stay in a locked alignment towards the end of the screen. This makes the game miles more enjoyable. Hitting enemies in this game is pretty satisfying, yet even if executed correctly, a Home Alone game can only be taken so far. I have fond memories of not knowing which button to press during the elevator sequence, leading to a prompt game over after failing to stun the Trenchcoat Man. By the way, the Trenchcoat Man will pursue you all the way to the elevators if you fail to stun or kill him. Just avoid him by all means. There's nothing scarier as a kid than being walked down by some bum in a trench coat. Most of your time in this game will be spent scaling each floor of the hotel, exploring every room, and returning to the elevator. Rinse and repeat. A game that is luckily more linear than the previously mentioned title. Kevin really found himself in the wrong hotel. Weapon variety is a plus in this game, as well as the fact that it is actually playable. However, as an early gaming experience, this one aspires to reach the top of the shit pile. A game that gathers dust at some old house I used to live in long ago. ClayFighter 2 Judgment Clay may be one of the better titles on this list, but nonetheless, I did not enjoy this game. This is not an easy to pick up and play fighting game, especially when it comes to facing the CPU. However, I have to give them some credit for the music and character designs. Keyword being some, because half of the character concepts themselves are horrible, while the other half manage to stand out as cool and unique in their own way. We need more characters like Kangoo and that yellow rabbit, same with the hand and the blob. Yet nobody asked for this ugly-ass baby caricature. The fact that this game was developed under a bit of a time crunch, combined with the first game's animation work being outsourced to an entirely different studio, does not contribute well to the final product. Now you may be wondering about the actual fighting mechanics themselves. They were possibly good for the time, but have aged like milk and then some. If you enjoy Street Fighter 2, and maybe even 1, you may find some novelty in this game. For me though, it was nothing but a disappointment accompanied by some funky music. Now let's talk about the game that I anticipated playing the most for this list, and that would be Batman Forever. And boy, was my anticipation a total mistake. I remember my friend Caleb and I booting this up a couple times as kids, back around the 5th grade. I loved the Mortal Kombat Genesis port, so I did find some fun in this game. The similarities between this game and the earliest Mortal Kombat are parallel to say the least. Where Mortal Kombat stays in its lane and reaches its destination, Batman Forever totals itself during the first instances of the game. Even the first few screens manage to channel an insane amount of frustration and confusion if you're going into it blind. As a kid, I was able to figure out the grappling hook with relative ease. As an adult with a tenuous memory of the game, I almost lost my mind in the early hours of the morning trying to cope with this. Call it lack of mental bandwidth or surplus of stupidity. But I seriously worked myself up trying to make it to this upper level early on. Combat is similar to Mortal Kombat as previously stated, minus a few basic moves like leg sweeps. Replacing these, however, is an assortment of cool item-specific moves. Batman can roll, throw batarangs and bombs, as well as glide. I'm sure that he has even more moves too, but unfortunately, this title will not keep my attention long enough for me to find out. As a matter of fact, Batman Forever had me yearning to play the last entry of this video. Sorry, Riddler the Diddler, but we'll have to catch you around in one of the Arkham games a couple decades after the release of this Genesis joke. If we're lucky, maybe we'll see your fat ass on Predator Poachers, alongside whoever possibly rushed what could have been a brilliant entry to the Batman franchise. Last but not least, we have the GOAT of all shitty games. The old heads will stick up for it, but I will not. This game would be Bubsy 3D on the PlayStation 1, the most disgusting and treacherous work ever created for an early 32-bit platform. Bubsy stares at you menacingly from the title screen, knowing you're about to enter a world that only a Machiavellian could conquer. As we did at the start of the video, let's circle back to your imagination. Imagine both Resident Evil and Super Mario 64. Get a good visual image of those games. Think about them and their mechanics real good. Now imagine they had sex on the floor and a platformer came out as a baby. And the whole time, Super Mario 64 wasn't even the father, paternity tests would show. Devs got lucky when the Croc games came out good, considering the tank controls. But this is an atrocity that only my institutionalized, street-hardened father would enjoy in his free time. And maybe me and my buddies a couple of months ago when we got drunk at my house. Except for Head Pie, he was begging us to turn this game off. Tyrese, however, was championing our victory. He carried the same determination as me to make it through as many levels as possible at the time, which takes me back to the end of 8th grade, when my buddy Ryan spent the night on my birthday. Gifting me this game, he happened to purchase it on eBay for 99 cents before shipping. Bubsy 3D was so bad that one night as a child in 2004, I completely tripped out about the game's disturbing intro. My dad walked over to my sister who was playing it, took the game out of the console, and crushed it in two with his bare, soapy hands. I know this broke his heart, as I had personally witnessed him make it through around 15 or so levels, possibly even more.